Welcome back to another episode of Red Static's Personal Life. My name is Red Static, I am your host, and today we're going to be talking about growth, if the title of the video wasn't obvious enough. So this has been on my mind lately a little bit, and I think it's an important topic to cover. I've been doing a lot of slop recently, you know what I mean, and I think it's time to maybe talk about something a little bit less sloppy. So recently I grew a lot in this past college year, alright? Like me a year ago and me now is honestly a lot different than, what I thought it would be. I've definitely changed a lot and I've definitely grown as a person. My perspective on things have changed and my life has changed a lot too. And, I think my maturity grew a lot in the last year and, change and stuff. I think through this maturity and stuff, I think my goals for YouTube has definitely changed a lot in the last year. At first, when I was, just doing the Red Static channel and I didn't start the new channel, I always thought, hey, I'll grow through this channel. I'm gonna keep doing the grind, and then eventually people realize how good my content is, and then I'll become a legendary YouTuber. But, as I grow up, I realized how kind of dumb that is, honestly. So then I kind of stopped doing YouTube. I was like, oh yeah, this isn't gonna work. There's really no point to it. But then last year, or I guess it was like, yeah, I mean last year, I decided to do the new default channel, and now that became my new goal. Through the growth that I've experienced, I realized that Red Static just isn't enough. And if I really do want to try doing this YouTube thing, then default is the way to go. However, as I grew also, there's a lot of other things that I have to worry about, and a lot of other things that I'm thinking about, whether it be, just social skills or my future or, being able to, work on life and other things that I have to do. And this has definitely changed the trajectory of my beliefs and, some of my core principles, I like to think. Like, for one, I used to, kind of be chronically online, and I just did not really, you know, have a lot of friends IRL, which is honestly kind of sad in retrospective. Like during high school, I did not have many friends, honestly, and life was kind of boring, I'm gonna be honest, and I was just kind of depressed. But through college, I definitely grew a lot in my social skills, and now I'm like 50% extroverted. Oh my gosh, guys, let's go. Oh yeah, I remember taking a personality test like before I started college, and I think it was like 89% introverted, which is not very good. But I took it recently, and now I think it said like I'm 56% extroverted or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but it was like, much higher. And, I think that's one way that I've definitely grown as a person. Also, as I grow as a person, I'm thinking a lot more about my future. Throughout high school and middle school and stuff, you don't really have a lot of time to kind of think about what you're gonna do in the future and stuff. So you just do what you want to do. You kind of just live in the moment. But, as you grow older, you realize how important it is to kind of look into your future and think about what you're trying to do, what your life is gonna be like. And that's also kind of changed my perspective on YouTube too, which I'll probably get into later. Or nah, yeah. What am I telling you about? I'll just tell you about it now. YouTube ended up being like a thing where I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna be something I'm gonna end up doing in the future. But the problem is, like, the more I grow, for most people, the more they grow, the more they realize, oh yeah, why would I become a YouTuber? This isn't, what's the point of this? This isn't gonna work. And so they just move on with their lives and they do what they love doing and then they find their passion and yeah, or, they become depressed and they become homeless or something. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But for me, I think more than just me not wanting to do YouTube anymore, I've still always wanted to do it. And I think that's helped me realize that YouTube is actually something that I really want to do. It's still like a little passion of mine. It's not something that like, I want to make like my priority in my life, but I still really love doing it, and I wanna expand it. I wanna grow in it. So that's helped me realize that you know I think the most important thing in life is just to do something that you love doing. Like, life is so much more worth living if you're doing something that you enjoy doing or you love doing. So finding your passion, I think, is very important for you as a person. And as I grow, I realize YouTube really is my passion, which is so cool. I've always wanted to do it as a kid, and then as I grow older, I still want to do it. And that's how I know that, if I do end up becoming a YouTuber, it would be great. I would love it. I would love to continually make videos, and it's definitely something that I really like doing. Now, the other thing I've grew up in, as I grew older, is just, my willingness to work hard. Throughout high school, now, actually, you know what? Throughout my entire life, I've been a pretty lazy guy, if I'm gonna be honest. If I didn't have motivation to work on something, I pretty much wouldn't work on it. And honestly, that made life a lot more difficult, if I'm gonna be honest. But, throughout last year, I've definitely improved on it a lot, and I'm definitely working a lot harder than I ever have in my life. Which is great, working hard is so much better than just not doing anything. At the same time, though, it also lets me realize, like, if I want to do YouTube as a thing, I'm gonna have to work a lot harder, cause I have other things in my life. I'm majoring in biology. I'm trying to become a dentist. That's like the school path I have. And if I want YouTube to be part of that, then I'm gonna have to work a lot harder. Like, obviously college is hard, so if I add YouTube into that, how much harder is that gonna be? Which might be discouraging to a lot of people. But for me, I think it's something that will help me improve myself and improve my life, honestly. Because right now, I'm trying to get over my laziness. Because that's still there. There's a lot of times where I'm just like demotivated. I'm like, oh, I want to do this, but I'm just too lazy and I don't have the strength to do it. But I still want to work hard and do the thing that I want to do. So I think YouTube could still be a part of that. And that's really cool. It's not like YouTube is something that's phased out. It's more of for me, it's that YouTube has evolved in my life. And that's pretty cool. I mean, also though, I do realize that like YouTube is incredibly unlikely to actually become something cool. But also, it's just something I realize it's something I want to do, regardless of any success or accolades that come my way. And that's also part of my core, beliefs that you should always do something that you love. Obviously, you still need to make money and pay the bills and stuff. So, you should still stay in school or just, work your jobs and stuff. But it's also important for your life just to find something that you love doing. Even if it's not your job that you love doing, you should still find something. Like, for example, some people really like skateboarding. I'm only saying this because I have a skateboard right next to me because I'm in the closet right now. But, like, a lot of people really love doing skateboarding stuff. And that doesn't mean that you have to not do it because you have a job, a 9 to 5 and stuff. You can work your job and still do the things that you love. And if your job ends up being something that you love doing, like if you become a pro skateboarder or something, that's even better. That's like the ideal life that you want to have. Although that is also something that is a little bit unrealistic. So that's why I'm still doing YouTube, because I know it's very unlikely and kind of dumb, honestly. But I still want to do it, and that's also something I've learned through my growth in my life. Alright, I kind of connected everything with my life with YouTube, which is kind of sad, honestly. But like, I also grew in other ways, like I said, like the social skills stuff. Let's talk about a non-YouTube thing. Let's talk about God. I think this last year I have also definitely grown in my relationship with God a lot. And honestly, I'm really happy with that. I've learned so much about, Jesus and the Bible and how he lives and everything. And, I realize how really blessed I am in my life. Honestly, a lot of the times I really feel like I'm just like the luckiest guy on earth. Like, first of all, I was born in a Christian loving family, and like it's easy to kind of like think about things that, oh, my life could have been better if this, my life could have been better if that. But that's just gonna make you unhappy. There's no point in thinking that way. And if you really think about it, there's just so many things to be thankful in life. Like I mentioned, I'm in a loving Christian family, which is amazing. And also, it seems like, I'm like in a relatively middle class family, you know, and a lot of people would think, oh, your life would be so much better if we were more rich and stuff. But for me, I think of it as a blessing because honestly, if we had more money than we have now, I think it would be so easy for me to be spoiled or just to be egotistical or something like that, or become even lazier than, than I have been in the past. And because I've had all of these experiences in my life, through there's obviously been a lot of struggle in my life still, you know. I think the biggest struggle I've had in the past is, not having any friends, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate with too. But through that, I realized that that's actually brought me closer to God, which is so cool, you know? If I wasn't struggling back then, if my life was just perfect and fine, maybe now I wouldn't be as close to God as I would be, and in the future my life would be even worse. But not really having a lot of people close to me helped me realize that, having God close to me is really important. And I've definitely realized that in the last year. And there's so many other things I can be thankful for, you know? I'm able to have a great 2 meal day every day. I only eat 2 meals. I don't know if that's normal or not. But like I can eat comfortably. I don't need to worry about not being able to eat food. Do you know how lucky we are to have that? I have a laptop that's like, I don't know how much this was, like 800 or something like that. But I'm able to have that. That's so amazing. I have an iPhone. Like, just call me Jeff Bezos at this point. There are just so many things that we take granted for life, you know. But there's so many blessings in it too. And honestly, even if like right now you think your life sucks, your life doesn't. Life doesn't suck. I mean, no, it can suck definitely, and it kind of does suck in a lot of times. But life isn't your life is actually so blessed if you really think about it. And I think that's what being a Christian does for my life. It helps me be so much more thankful about all of my things in life. And it helps me realize, how truly blessed I am. And through that, it makes me so much more of a happy guy, you know? Life is so much better just knowing the things that you can be thankful for. Through thankfulness, happiness comes. And that's why God is so important in my life. Because He brings the happiness. He brings, the fruit of the spirits, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Like, it's so cool. If there's anybody who's watching this who's, just confused in their life right now, they're, at a crossroads or struggling with something or whatever you're dealing with, just, keep going. Because at the end of the day, I've realized from this past year, life is worth living. Life has a lot of pain within it, definitely, for sure. And there's so many times where life just sucks. And even if it's like nothing too serious, sometimes it's just hard to live. But at the end of the day, there's so many things that you live for too. You have friends, you have family, you're just able to make your own choices and live your life. That's worth living, right? That's worth, being alive, I think. And despite the pain that you may experience within life, you have the power to get rid of that pain a lot of the times. And you have the power to be happy and to be just more of a complete person. So I think in the end of the day, what life is definitely worth living, and there's so many joys in life that we just don't really think about. I think for me, happiness is with thankfulness and Jesus, that's definitely like the main thing that I think I've learned this past year. And for any people who are non-Christians, for me personally, I think true happiness only comes through God. But that still doesn't mean that you can't be a, relatively happy person. There's still a lot of things you can control. But also, you should think about the God thing a little bit, that's all I'm saying. Nowadays, I'm still struggling a little bit right now. Like now that I'm in the summer and I don't really have a lot of things to keep me preoccupied, I find myself being really bored and just so easily doom scrolling and stuff like that, And that's, I'm just getting distracted really easily, kind of going back to the old ways of life a little bit. But, I'm still trying to improve in that. Life isn't gonna be perfect. Nobody has a perfect life. That's just impossible. But you can make life so much better than it is now. And I'm gonna keep working on myself. I'm gonna keep growing, I'm sure right now, like, I'm definitely not, like, the most mature person on the earth or anything. I'm definitely still growing in my life. And the more I experience, the hopefully the better person that I'll become. And that's what I want to try to do, be the best person that I can be. So, me personally, I'm gonna keep pushing forward, keep trying to do my best to do the right thing. And I know with Jesus in my life, eventually I'm gonna get through the things that I'm struggling with, you know? And in the end, we're gonna be able to experience the eternal happiness. And having that in my life as a comfort is also such a huge blessing that I know in the end, I'm gonna be able to go into a life where there's no pain, there's no unhappiness. And, that gives me so much hope for my life and so much love within my heart. Alright, enough preaching. I gotta end the video. Thanks for watching to the end if you did watch to the end. Oh my gosh, I've been recording for 20 minutes. Dang, that's crazy. Make sure to keep smoking crack and drinking alcohol.